We have long held a fascination with times long beyond the reach of our own lives. Before the shroud of the present, before the great empires of antiquity, before even the dawn of man, there exists a time beyond all imagination. The top predator of the late Jurassic is patrolling its territory. Scanning through the foliage, it hones in on an intruder and waits for the perfect moment to strike. It is the late Jurassic period, and the area that will one day become Portugal's capital is home to one of the most impressive environments anywhere in the world. A warm, semi-arid climate and a fruitful wet season fuels the growth of thick forests full of conifers and seeding plants. This is a perfect environment for herbivorous dinosaurs to flourish. Armoured thyreophorans feast on ferns, whilst titanic sauropods gorge themselves on the highest branches. Meanwhile, in their shadows, smaller ornithopods carve out a living of their own. In an ecosystem like this, the ravenous appetites of thousands of tons of herbivores needs to be regulated, so as to not destroy these forests. And that is the job of the Lourinhã's resident carnivores. The apex predator here is Torvosaurus, a larger relative of Megalosaurus. Powerfully built, this male is some 10 meters in length and weighs in at 4 tons. He himself is dwarfed by this older male who he is allied with. It is fairly common for Torvosaurus to pair up like this. Pair bonding typically happens in mated couplings, but on rarer occasions it can happen between individuals of the same sex as well. The pair often affirm their bond with physical closeness and gentle growls, before going their separate ways to patrol. Patrolling territory is a daily chore in the lives of these dinosaurs. When your territory can expand for hundreds of square kilometers, keeping it rival-free takes a lot of time and effort. Luckily, the pair can cover ground more quickly by splitting up, rejoining each other later when it is time to hunt. As the younger male patrols, he finds one of the other large predators of Portugal, Allosaurus. This is the European species of Allosaurus, one of the smallest of the genus, just about surpassing 1.5 tons in weight. In North America, Allosaurus dominate, with some species surpassing 4 tons, but here in Portugal, Allosaurus are dwarfed by Torvosaurus. 2 large predators in the same environment is a recipe for conflict, something which is disadvantageous to both carnivores. So instead of battling for the same resources, each predator is adapted to different prey items. Allosaurus is lightly built, lean, fast and tough, making it a perfect predator of all shapes and sizes of prey, from ornithopods to small sauropods. Torvosaurus, meanwhile, is far more heavily built, and as such has a much more powerful bite. They are specialists in hunting big game. Such game includes Lourinhã's many stegosaurs. There are 2 types of stegosaurs here, the larger Dacenturus and the smaller Miragaia. For this hunt, the Torvosaurus pair choose the smaller target. Miragaia are thyreophorans like ankylosaurs, but instead of adapting armour, they have grown long necks and impressive backplates. But Miragaia is certainly not helpless, as adorning its tail are over a dozen long spikes. These thagomizers are each nearly a metre long, and even a predator as mighty as Torvosaurus must remain wary of them. To bring down Miragaia, they will need to use strategy and teamwork. First, they select their target, one which has strayed deeper into the forest, away from the protection of the herd. Here, the cover of the trees provides ample opportunities for ambush, and helps restrict the range of movement of Miragaia's deadly tail. First, the younger male rushes forwards, but he has been noticed, and the herbivore turns its tail towards the carnivore. This, however, is by design. Miragaia's brain is fairly small, and whilst this is usually no hindrance, it means that with its attention occupied, the movements of the larger male go unregistered. With a single well-placed bite to the neck, the nearly 2-ton herbivore is brought down. A kill as large as this will feed both Torvosaurus for over a week. It won't just be them either. Once the pair leave, a litany of smaller theropod dinosaurs will come to eat from the kill. This Allosaurus has already noticed the commotion and placed itself first in the queue to eat. In the lives of carnivorous dinosaurs, scavenging is just as natural as hunting for food. Elsewhere in these forests, other dinosaurs have found completely different ways of finding a meal. On the other side of the river, a giant dinosaur is feasting. Lusotitan, the largest dinosaur in the region. It is Portugal's answer to the famous Brachiosaurus, and possesses some of the same unique attributes, namely elongated forelimbs and a long neck held high, allowing this giant to reach the branches over 12 meters above the ground. No other dinosaur in Portugal, not even other sauropods, can reach so high, allowing Lusotitan access to an uncontested food source of nutritious gymnosperm cones and leaves. This diet has allowed the giant to grow into a 34-ton colossus. Supersaurus is another sauropod giant here, and it is even longer than Lusotitan. Despite this, however, it is far, far lighter, just about outweighing a modern African elephant. These long-necked giants are lightly built and use their long necks to sweep across wide areas and strip the leaves from any plant unlucky enough to be in its height range. In their stomach, they have hundreds of small stones called gastroliths, which they use to aid in grinding up tough plant matter. Under the feet of such giants, smaller ornithopod dinosaurs try to make a living for themselves. These are Dryosaurus, sociable herbivores, who have come here to take advantage of the food which the sauropods drop from higher up. As they eat, one Dryosaurus remains as a sentry. Whilst these dinosaurs are larger than a man, they are still very vulnerable to larger predators if they let their guard down. Although sometimes danger doesn't come from predators. If the Dryosaurus become too complacent in their feeding, they risk being crushed underfoot by the distracted Lusotitan. They are, however, unaware that they are being watched from the forest. A hunting Allosaurus, looking for an opportunity. The sauropods are far too large to attack head-on, but a Dryosaur would make for a perfect-sized snack. For now, it stays at the edge of the forest and uses the noise of the sauropods to mask its own movements. Allosaurus can reach up to 34 kilometers an hour in a sprint, but holding that speed is very difficult. With this distance, they can easily escape it. The Allosaurus will need to ambush them from as close as possible. The sentry gives an alarm call and its cover is blown. Now the only choice is to give chase as best it can. Eventually, the Dryosaurus get away. It's a hard fact of life for ambush predators like Allosaurus that most hunts will fail. The giant sauropods meanwhile pay little mind to what happens beneath their feet and keep eating. They are all trying to build up fat reserves for the approaching dry season. It isn't just the sauropods preparing for the long dry. For the Torvosaurus, it's especially important to keep thieves from stealing precious prey from their territory. This large female crossed into the pair's territory 2 days ago, and a confrontation has broken out. Whilst Allosauruses are mostly a nuisance, another Torvosaurus represents a real threat to the balance of prey items that they rely on to survive. She is as large as the older male, and will require a major show of force to remove. The pair bellow and sink to show that they are a unified front, hoping that the female will find two opponents too intimidating of a prospect. It is clear, however, that she will require more convincing. Both males work together to overwhelm and box her in, whilst avoiding direct fighting and the risk of injury that comes with it. And it works. The female leaves. Fighting losing battles is hardly what you want to be doing in the run-up to the dry season. It has been 3 months, and the dry season is now in full swing. Throughout the region, the signs are obvious. Dry, dead plant matter litters the ground, and many trees that couldn't handle the heat and lack of water have fallen. It is a much drier, duller, and more difficult world. Most plants here are evergreens, so even in the dry season, most herbivores can just about get by, and with them the predators can too. But the margins for error are higher, and the consequences for mistakes greater. The hardest challenge, finding water. The river that flows through this region, without rainwater to fuel it, has dwindled to mere wet dirt. In times like this, watering holes become the most important places around, providing a vital lifeline for the local community. Much like every other dinosaur here, the Torvosaurus pair also have to drink, but they have a problem. The hole is currently surrounded by at least 50 tons of herbivores, many of which are armed and dangerous. Such numbers are impossible to sneak past, and fighting is an even more impossible proposition. Instead, the Torvosauruses must resort to a different tactic: diplomacy. They deliberately give away their position with a loud bellow, letting the herbivores know exactly where they are. From there, they approach slowly and carefully. When times are tough, none of the herbivores want to waste precious energy fighting off Torvosaurus, and so they enter an uneasy truce. The herbivores must remain on guard, however, as once the Torvosaurus pair have had their drink, they may begin to see the high concentrations of prey around the hole as an opportunity. The dry season isn't a time of hardship for all, however. For some, it is a time to find love. For Miragaia, this is their mating season, and the plains have been taken over by the congregation of armoured giants. It may look like a random crowd, but there is organisation in this chaos. Each male Miragaia hopes to find a good spot to display, and attract as many females as possible. The more impressive and well-positioned a male is, the more likely it is for females to mate with him, allowing him to pass on his genes. This male seems to have attracted quite the audience. He is an experienced competitor in this ritual and has likely mated hundreds of times across his lifespan. By stretching, he shows off his large backplates and thagomisers, proving that he is a healthy and desirable partner. But attention does bring jealousy. This large male is young, but exceptionally big for his age. Having found little success in his previous patch, now he seeks to steal a new display stage. Direct fighting between stegosaurs is fairly rare by the standards of other herbivorous dinosaurs. Instead, the two dinosaurs walk alongside each other, displaying their size and strength to the other, hoping to avoid a bloody conflict. However, it seems both males are quite evenly matched, and neither appears to know how to resolve the deadlock. With speed and precision, the younger male makes a mock swing with his tail. This bold move proves to be enough to finally dethrone the older male. For the new star stegosaur, it is likely that he will be just as successful as his foe by the time he is dethroned. Mating, however, might be tricky when each of your many partners have just as many spikes as you do. Meanwhile, the older male has found himself on the edge of the mating group. He is exhausted and thirsty, but a cocktail of hormones prevents him from resting, drinking, or doing anything other than continuing in vain to display. Out here on the edges, though, the older male finally receives some attention. These two Allosauruses know that breeding male Miragaia are liable to exert themselves in desperation. They are quite happy to let time, the sun, and the male's own desire to mate slowly but surely bring him down. For the Allosauruses, it's one ticket closer to surviving this dry season. Four months later, and a heatwave and drought are in full swing. The rains were due weeks ago, but thanks to fluctuations in the location of Earth's thermal equator, those rains haven't materialized. The ecosystem has been brought to the brink, and for some, it has become too much. This Supersaurus herd is migrating south, towards the coast of Lourinhã's small landmass, in hope of finding fresh growth and water. It's an arduous journey for these giants as the sun beats down on their bodies. Others, however, are not so lucky in being able to migrate long distances. The Torvosaurus pair haven't eaten in days, but they've picked up the scent of fresh blood. The source? A fresh kill by an Allosaurus. A lone Allosaurus is no match for the pair, but in these conditions, it refuses to back down easily. A charge by the younger male finally sends the Allosaurus running. All that for a single Bryosaurus carcass. It's a meagre prize for two 4-ton giants. If rains and new prey don't come soon, the pair are at a very real risk of starvation. The evening brings the unmistakable sound of thunder rolling over the hills. The heatwave has finally broken, and to the south, rising hot air has cooled to produce a thunderstorm. This is good news for the Torvosaurus pair. If rain arrives soon, prey populations will bounce back. The night, however, brings a new threat. When lightning strikes in such dry conditions, fire is soon to follow. With the right winds and dry dead vegetation covering the forest floor for hundreds of miles, the stage is set for an uncontrollable blaze. For hours, the firestorm burns through the area. Any animal in its path is burnt to a crisp, and even animals clear of the blaze must contend with suffocating carbon gases. All the Torvosauruses can do is try their best to stay one step out of reach and hope their stamina lasts the night. The sun rises over a desolated landscape. A huge part of the forest has been wiped out by the blaze. Thousands of animals now lie as little more than charred skeletons. The younger male has survived, but was separated from his partner during the blaze. It is unknown if he survived. What could have been a lifeline has proved to be a poisoned apple. The Torvosaurus, though, isn't the only survivor. A mob of Allosaurus formed after the disaster. For Allosaurus usually wouldn't risk trying their luck with an adult Torvosaurus, but after a disaster like this, food and territory are commodities worth fighting for. The younger male tries his best to avoid the confrontation, but soon enough the Allosaurs surround him. They work as a group to wear him down. Fending off one leaves an opportunity for another to attack. Hearing the commotion, two more Allosaurs join the fray. It is now impossible for the younger male to escape, and he is exhausting himself very quickly. But it is not just Allosaurs the commotion has attracted. With the older male arriving, the tides have turned. Wounded but alive, the younger male makes a lucky escape. After a forest fire, the environment is cleansed and given an opportunity to grow back anew. For the pair, the fire and dust of the dry season is finally over, and a new time of opportunity has come. In the next program, we will journey to Asia to meet the marvellous feathered dinosaurs that make their home there.